My name is Ruhina Surendran, and today Kerstin and I are going to present from schematics to construction. This is an introduction to the different phases of design and what the cost implications are. I'm a landscape architect, and I have a special interest in biodiversity and low-cost sustainable design. And I've worked on several projects across the Bay Area on residential as well as commercial jobs. And right now I'm looking at more green roofs and edible gardens, but I continue to work on residential and commercial work. And Kerstin, you wanted to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm an architect and I work dominantly on residential projects all over the Bay Area. I've been doing that for 20 years. I have a special interest in the indoor-outdoor connection, which is so important and possible in the Bay Area. I'm originally from Germany, and it is very attractive to be able to do that here, and pretty much 3/4 out of the year to be able to live outdoors kind of if you want. And I have an interest in sustainable design and especially all electric homes, which is something that's coming. I actually have a couple that I'm working on and I'm hoping to attract more of those.
Okay, great. So today we're going to share the presentation where Kerstin will start with the architectural side of the phases of design, and I'll get into the landscape portion. And then we'll talk about lessons learned and summarize it. So the design process is typically in 4 parts. The first 3 are in design. Schematic design is a general overall exploratory phase. Then you get into more specifics with design development. And then from there, construction drawings are typically required for permit, and it's considered the third and the most, kind of like the bulk of the project. And after that, you get into construction admin, which is during the construction where the designer reviews the project progress. So in the design phase, typically what clients need to be educated on is that during schematic design, it's very easy to make changes. The cost implications are minimal. And that's where you're kind of exploring all the different options. So it's much better to explore at the schematic design phase. And then when you get into design development, you start to kind of fine-tune the design and start to narrow down the options. And then finally, for construction documentation, by then it's almost too late to make changes because it becomes too expensive. So that's one of the things we wanted to talk about. And then by the time you get into construction, you don't want to make too many changes. So now Kerstin will talk about the phases for architectural projects.
This is a little accessory dwelling unit, and I just wanted to show, because it's a very concise program, how to build a mini living unit in addition to a house in the rear of an existing residence. And I have 4 very different options that can all fulfill their programmatic requirements, has everything they want. These drawings by hand, because it shows how easy they can be modified and changed, and you can make adjustments easily. It feels very graspable for people and they're more approachable. And then in this phase, they had a budget and a program, and I tried to come up with very concise, compact units that would be buildable within the money that they wanted to spend. But once they saw the options, they actually decided that they wanted a more complex shape. So we went through a second phase of schematics, and you can see now the shapes have become much more complicated but responsive to the garden. Like the little pinwheel on the top left, and then on the right there's a wing that opens and steps back and forth a little bit and responds to the side shape and the tree in the back. And then this shotgun one on the top bottom left that also shapes around the tree, but it's on the north side of the yard. And then the next page will show I also built models for each of them, so that you have the backyard, which is kind of like an outdoor space, and you can pop that little model in and you see what happens, how much space you have to give up and what kind of spaces you create around it. And so I just make the models really fast, but really effective. And in the client meeting, we can take a scissor and just, cut things up. They also have roofs. I didn't put them on here. And you can just move them around and just really explore on a larger scale. schematic design for a residential addition. So I'm just showing the design that the clients pick. And there's also a model view of that. So it's an addition in the rear. And you can see the dark walls is where the addition is in the back, with the bathroom and a deck and a kitchen addition. So now we're going, once they've decided that we're going into design development, what I do is I go and start working in CAD. So everything gets pinned down with the existing site, how it ties in with the home, and we're now down to inches of precision, and we're making sure that all the elevations, all the sections, that everything works with each other. Can you show the next slide that shows the exterior elevations? And there's a model view from the back, so you can kind of see that even that model was very rough, but it has a lot in common with what we moved forward in developing. So now we're in design development, and then we're going to the next phase. So this is now construction documents, and this is kind of what gets submitted for the building permit. So that's just the site plan and some other plans missing. It's okay. Now we have grid lines in there, and it shows that's, communicating with the structural engineer. Everything is coordinated with that. There are all kinds of dimensions in there. This is a pretty simple project, so it's not super complicated, but everything is now laid out. We know that the refrigerator will fit, and that where the range will go, and everything is kind of set. So when you have this permit set, you could build the project based on that. Next slide shows the exterior elevations. It has the window schedule, and so you can buy the windows. Everything could be done from this permit set. So this is actually in permitting. So now I'm showing when we're going into the CA phase, because of the way construction works in the Bay Area, that permitting takes a really long time and drawing is really expensive. I do a lot of detailing during construction administration when the building is being built. And it's really important to have an architect or a landscape architect on the job site, because they help you get the project built the way it was designed. If you don't have your designer on board during construction, you're at the mercy of the contractor, who can, modify things, make it easier, or tell you something can't happen. All kinds of things can happen. But a good contractor will need an architect or a landscape architect to help them interpret the drawings and also help them deal with site conditions. So this is just a simple, well, it's not that simple actually. It's a rear upper deck and lower deck on the right. This is kind of a key plan for the details. And on the left, you can see there's an awning and a shade sail that will be on this upper deck. So it's twice the scale on the left from the right. And then the next drawing will show detailing for the awning. So that's for fabrication, to get it to a steel fabricator. And then the next sheet will show you some exterior elevations. Again, we can see the awning and the railings, and how the awning and the railing is coordinated. Possible to have these sails attached at the same heights, and how to get all the rail posts in the right location and have it work with the code requirements, coordinated with the structural engineer, because it's a custom rail, so they need to calculate for overturning forces on the railings and stuff. And then the next sheet shows you something I did for cost savings. I did all the details just by hand. It was actually pretty fast, and they're full scale, but that shows you the different connections. This is just kind of half of I think I had twice as many details for the specific situations that then the contractor can use to communicate with the structural engineer, and how to install the rail, and how to fabricate it and how to install it, because this railing needed to be bolted, because we couldn't afford site welding. So all the posts are loose from the cap rails, but we had to show how they will all come together once they're delivered to the site. Kind of the end of my presentation. I think I wanted to say one quick thing about schematics. I don't know if now is the right time, but I actually have a project that I got because a previous architect who's very capable, for some reason, didn't go through the schematic process fully and really explore the client's program properly. Didn't really meet some of their requirements. And they went all the way to almost submitting it for planning review when they realized that they weren't going to be happy with it. So we had to go back and start with schematic design again, which tells you like that's actually a phase where you can explore a lot of options for very little money. But once you moved already forward to schematic to design development, now you've spent all that money for the design development, and you go back and you get a new project, get a new schematic design and develop that again. So you pay twice for that, for the same, just to get to the same point again.
Kerstin just covered the architectural portion, and I'm going to look at the same design process for landscape work. Typically, in schematic design, that's the time when the client tells me about programmatic requirements. So what are the things that they want to include in the project? If they want to have an outdoor kitchen, if they want to have a play area. So all those items would be part of their wish list. And also during this phase, they send me pictures of styles so I can get a better idea of the look and feel of the space. And I have to figure out how much space to allocate for seating, for circulation, for dining. And depending on the budget, also figure out whether it's going to be more planted or more paving, and the number of trees, and the type of fencing, driveway, paving, just in general, the overall look. So this is a phase where you explore options. And this is one of the first projects that I worked on 6 years ago. And in this project, I gave them 3 options, and they ended up picking different elements from each because they liked certain things. They liked the color of the walkway in one, they liked the border in the other, and they liked the curvilinear. They didn't want too much of a linear formal look to the space. So giving them these options early on, they can pick, and then later when they make a change, it's like, okay, we gave you the options at the beginning. That's the point where, you start from the very general and then you get to the most specific towards the end. So during schematic design, I also provide sketches. It could be a SketchUp version of what it looks like, or it could be hand-drawn sketch. And this, on top of a photograph of the existing house, can show what the new design would look like. It's a very good way to visually see. And sometimes I also provide concept models. So this is done on SketchUp for an Eichler courtyard, where the owner wanted to have a deck or some kind of paving to level up to the ground level and screen the patio away from the bedroom. So in this project, the models helped quite a bit because as soon as they saw the walkthrough and the video and the pictures of the different views, they were able to understand. Because usually also, on a plan view, lay person cannot understand what exactly it means. So it's better to have it as a model, either as a concept or a real model.